India is world's second largest producer and consumer of coal. This fossil fuel keeps the country's lights on because three-quarters of the total electricity produced in the country is produced using this fossil fuel. In spite of being one of the world's largest coal reserves, and as a matter of pride, we own the largest coal mining company in the world. But still, there is an alarming issue of coal crisis in our country. The issue is so serious that 108 of the 173 thermal power plants in the country are facing a serious issue related to the coal reserves available. The stocks in these thermal plants are critically low. So what is the real issue? What are the ground realities and what can be done? In ExplainWallah for IAS by LearnStroke, today let's examine the coal crisis in India. India is going through a major power crisis since October 2021. Many states like Gujarat, Maharashtra, Andhra Pradesh, Jharkhand, etc. are resorting to various measures like power cuts in order to resolve the issue of serious power shortage. Electricity supply in the country fell short of demand by almost 1.6% during the first 27 days of April, as per the report by Reuters. One of the major reasons behind the rising power demand is the rise in temperatures in most of the northern and central Indian states. India imports a little under a quarter of coal for its consumption. Most of it is coking coal, which is not domestically available, which is used in blast furnaces for the production of steel. We also need to understand that the rising power demand was also triggered by the reopening of economy after almost 2 years of the pandemic lockdowns. Almost 70% of the electricity produced in India is produced using coal. Right now, I hope you can imagine the gravity of the issue that we are facing right now. As per the recent reports, the coal stock in over 100 plus thermal power plants in India are less than 25% of its required stock. And in over 50 plus thermal power plants, they are below the 10% critical mark. This has forced many of the state governments to raise requests to the central government to increase the supply of coal. If we take the case of Jharkhand, Jharkhand is facing serious power shortages. That is, the power supply is facing a shortage of almost 10 to 12%, which is followed by Andhra Pradesh. So now let's examine what are the reasons behind the emerging coal crisis. The first and foremost reason behind the coal crisis is the shortage of domestically available coal. If we are not able to meet the required demands of coals, absolutely no doubt that we'll face severe power shortages as we faced during October 2021 and April this year. The second major reason is coal imports. We are producing almost 70% of our electricity using coal, as I said earlier. But as a result of the Russia-Ukraine crisis, we are facing shortage of imported coal. Moreover, the coal prices of imported coal are expected to rise by almost 35% compared to the same period last year. The third reason is the deteriorating coal stocks available with the state-owned thermal power plants worsened after the rising power demand, especially during March, which was the hottest month recorded in history. And yet another reason is an increasing power demand by all sectors at a national scale has further worsened the situation. As per the centre's core management team, heavy rains in states like Gujarat, Rajasthan, Delhi, Punjab and Tamil Nadu, which are the chief coal mining states, has also contributed to the issue of coal crisis. Moreover, the railway which supply huge stocks of coal has raised the freight charges in order to keep the passenger fares down. Now let's see what happens in a thermal power plant. In a thermal power plant, coal is used to produce electricity. What happens is coal is burnt inside a boiler to produce steam. The steam thus produced flows to a turbine and it is used to spin a generator, which in turn produced electricity. The steam is further condensed and the water that's produced goes back to the boiler again. Now let's see how the issue of coal crisis has contributed to the issue of power supply and what are its implications on cost. As per the American credit agency Fitch, the daily electricity deficit in India has increased from 0.3% to 1% in April 2022. This power deficit has led to an 85% increase in the price of electricity traded on Indian exchanges from an average of rupees 3 per kilowatt to 8.23 per kilowatt in March. To regulate prices, CEA has capped short-term power exchange rates to rupees 12 per kilowatt. Due to the mismatch between the requirements and the supply side, the centre has been forcing many of the states and power generating companies to import coal in order to run the imported coal-based power plants. Of the 165 plants, 15 of them depend solely on imported coal. Imported coal is blended with domestic coal to the extent of 10% in order to ease the burden on domestic coal supply. Many of the state-owned power generation companies are also not ready to import coal due to the high input costs they are likely to face. Already they owe millions of dollars of debt to the generators, which has raised their input costs, but they were always forced to keep their tariffs at a steady rate. So what are the government efforts to mitigate the issue of coal crisis? The government says that it is doing everything possible in order to ensure energy security in India. The government-owned Coal India Limited has said that it has raised supplies to thermal power stations by 14.2% during the first half of April 2022 compared to the same period last year. The company has further informed that it has increased coal production to 26.4 million tons during the first half of April 22, achieving a 27% on year-on-year growth. The government has also halted many of the passenger trains on priority routes for coal wagons to reach the thermal power plants on an urgent basis. We are facing the issue of acute power crisis at a time when power demand is rising at a faster rate in at least for the last 38 years. Moreover, the supply crunch has also been triggered by the Russia-Ukraine war. India has promised to increase its renewable energy capacity to 450 gigawatts by 2030. But the fact is, the rise in renewable is not sufficient enough to end the growth of coal. Moreover, India's coal is high in ash, that is almost 35% or more, which is very polluting. According to Greenpeace, this has contributed to almost 1 lakh deaths per year. Reduction in coal consumption is a long-term process and cannot be achieved in a short span. So now it's time for us to examine what are the alternatives available at present. First and foremost, solar power is a viable option. The increasing subsidies and promotions in order to promote solar energy has made it a very cost-effective alternative to produce electricity. Secondly, windmills can be used to generate electricity at a potential scale. Nuclear power could be yet another possible option, but this operates at a very large scale when compared to coal or any other renewable energy source. But the real issue arises due to the fact that storage of the management of electricity thus produced becomes very difficult. Last but not the least, electricity generation through waste treatment plants. That is, solid or liquid waste can be processed to generate steam which can be used to produce electricity. In India, the probability of this is very high as India produces almost 150,000 tons of waste every day. But there are critical barriers to this realization because coal-dependent sectors are providers of livelihood, infrastructure and electricity. So phasing out coal completely is an issue that needs to be addressed at a macro scale. Although I discussed many alternatives as a replacement to coal, all that can be adopted only in the long run. So what can be done at present? What we can do right now is to use this crisis as a window of opportunity, that is, as a transitional phase to more greener and renewable energy sources.